You are muted, good sir. There you go.
About now. Hi there.
There you go.
Did you
Hi.
have a, did you have a good lunch or were you taking care of things that you needed to take care of?
Yeah, a little bit of both. A little bit of both. But hi, hello. Welcome everyone. Um, we are so glad that you are here and joining us for this month's webinar here in August. I cannot believe that we're in August. I just did back to school with my kids. And are we already here? Can't believe that. But we are going to be talking about collections beyond the collector today. And I am joined here by Mr. Eric Batchelor, the president of Alamo Financial. We're going to be going through this webinar today. If you are watching this on repeat, hi, hello. So sorry that you couldn't join us, but I'm glad that you have the opportunity to join us now and watch this. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen.
I noticed we have people on the webinar from all different parts of the country. And I wonder about back to school, if I guess all schools start in general around the middle of August. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
it's kind of
I
interesting.
know a lot of the schools up north start in September,
Huh.
just because they get past that Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Huh.
then it starts, it stays warmer a little bit up there when they have those awful
Yeah.
months of snow. So it kind of
Oh,
balances out, I guess.
yeah.
But hi, welcome everyone again, and thank you for joining us today. Whether you're a dealer, a general manager, a collector, office manager, customer service representative, I think that today's topic is going to challenge the way that you've always looked at collections. Most dealerships think that collections begins with a customer's missed payment. I used to think the same thing. But after years of working with dealerships across the country, I've realized something. Collections isn't just a department, it's the result of the operational decisions your dealership makes. Today, we're going to walk through an entire customer life cycle and see how every department either strengthens or weakens your cash flow that's coming in. So let's start with one simple question, and that would be, when does collections actually begin?
Wow. That's a good one. I'm going to say it begins at during the sales process, right? I have a feeling you're going to tell us the same thing.
Yes. Um, so I'd like everybody to kind of think about this. You can put some uh, answers in the chat, and we'll kind of review if you have questions throughout this. Just go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll go over there or go over those questions. I think that there is a Q&A section as well for you to put that. But yes, let's get back to this question. When does collections actually begin? If I ask this question at a conference, you'd probably hear the same answer every time. When a customer misses their payment, that's when you're usually calling to collect on that payment, or when it becomes past due, when they stop answering the phone. Those answers make sense because that's when collections usually gets involved. But today I'd like to challenge that idea. What if I told you collections actually begins before the customer ever leaves your dealership? So let's follow this journey of a customer through the entire cycle. So this is the customer's journey, and each step impacts your cash flow. So with every customer follows this journey. It starts with sales, then finance, then funding, then customer service, insurance, payment, collections. maybe repossessions in there, maybe the recovery if you have to do the repossessions. The interesting part, every single step either increases your chance of getting paid or creates more work for collectors later. Collections is simply where those decisions become visible. So, what happens when we wait until collections to solve the problem? What do you think, Mr. Bachelor?
So repeat that question one more time. I was reading through that list. What was the question?
Yeah, what happens when we wait until collections to solve the problem?
Oh gosh. The first thing is it's too late if you're looking at it then. Um, and that's when the problems occur, meaning either the customer was put into more vehicle than what they could afford, or the underwriting guidelines of how long they should have been in their home or at their job, or their income requirements didn't fit the situation. That's kind of my thoughts.
Yep. And I think that there's some misconceptions going around, and we'll answer those on the next slide. Uh, Back it up one. Okay. Collections fixes bad accounts. The reality of that is collections manages the results of decisions already made. So, again,
That
one of
is
the
huge.
biggest misconceptions I see is we often expect the collections department to solve every delinquency. But by the time an account reaches collections, so many things have already happened or failed to happen. Maybe expectations weren't clearly explained. Maybe contact information wasn't verified. Maybe insurance lapsed without some follow-up going on. Maybe the customer had a billing question that never got answered.
Yeah.
Collections becomes the department trying to recover from all of those earlier decisions. That's why I believe collections isn't a standalone department, it's an outcome. The better your dealership operates every day, the less your collections team has to fight preventable problems.
And I'll add real quick, one thing that we see, at least when we take over portfolios, is a lot of inconsistency. So if customers aren't being told the same thing each time, um, it creates doubt in the customer's mind, and they realize what buttons they can push to push out their payment, and then it rolls into partial payments. And
Mhm.
so the setting the boundaries with your customer, like you said, starting back at the sales piece, I think that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that I try to do when dealers come on here at Alamo Financial is go through that process with them. Let them know what they need to be telling their customers upon that origination. Let them know how partial payments work or don't work. Let them know what is going to happen to them if they miss out on their CPI payment or don't make their payment, or what about a first payment default? All of those things need to be explained because they are realities that happen every day to these customers.
Yeah. That's so true. Especially times like right now, people going back to school, and
Yep.
so I'm sending kids back to school, and yeah, with just general expenses today, it's more important than ever to really focus on this.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with the sales. Most people think that the sales department job ends once the customer drives away. I would argue that's exactly where collections begins. The way your sales team communicates during delivery has a direct impact on the future payment behavior, like we were just explaining. If you don't talk about it at the dealership or when they're signing paperwork, they're not going to know. Yes, the collections department could give them a welcome call, explain procedures, all of these things, but sometimes that happens too late. And so, where does it need to start out? I mean, think about it. The customer remembers what you spent time talking about. If you spend 30 minutes discussing the Bluetooth features, but 30 seconds discussing the payment expectations, what message have you really sent? A great sales professional doesn't just sell the car, they build that future customer. So, what exactly should a salesperson be communicating then?
So, yeah, what you just said is what I was thinking is a good smart salesperson will realize this is building my next customer. So once I treat this customer right, help them complete their financial obligation and the contract successfully, then that will allow them to hopefully come back to me, the salesperson, for the next purchase. And we try to get them into a better vehicle with better financing options and all of that. So that's yeah, that's a big piece of it. And it also cuts down good communication early with your customers that are going to be doing in-house financing. It cuts down on a lot of future issues as far as a customer coming back to you saying, hey, this and hey, that, this didn't go right or that didn't go right, or they have a real bad taste in their mouth about their experience. So instead of becoming your next future customer and all their family members, you could really cost yourself a lot of sales, you
Yeah.
know?
And I was going to say those referrals are golden too. Not only did you earn a repeat customer of somebody who did already purchase a vehicle, but all of their friends and family. If they have a great experience with you and you have explained, kind of lifted that veil off of what is truly going on or what is expected of them, then that transparency is everything sometimes. That's kind of a philosophy that I live behind, that transparency. Because if you don't communicate it, they don't know. So when the issue arises, and it will arise, you need to know what to do in those situations. And your customers need to have a clear guideline of where they're going.
Yep, agree on that.
So every interaction during delivery communicates that expectation. I'm going to speak as a salesperson right now and use we. Whether we realize it or not, we're making promises. Okay, first we tell the customers that paying on time matters. Second, we explain exactly when payments are due. Third, we encourage communication. Fourth, we stress the importance of maintaining insurance. And finally, we let the customers know we're a partner, not an enemy. Customers who trust you call you, and customers who fear you disappear.
Yep, it's those customers that go dark or go quiet. Those are the ones you gotta worry about typically.
And if they don't know the expectations, and then you are just calling them to punish them. It's again, I go back to children. I'm a mom of three, so I use analogies with kids a lot because I understand it.
You
It's like
manage kids
telling your,
around, you manage kids around the office too.
that's true. That's true. Um, But if you have a child and you just discipline them for something when they didn't know what the rule was, maybe they didn't know that they could stand on the table. Given to us as adults, we're like, yeah, you don't stand on the table, you could fall off the table. But as a child experiencing it for the first time, they don't know to not stand on the table. They don't know that that's appropriate. If you just punish them without giving them that direction first, they're not going to understand what they did and why they did it. So imagine going to a customer who has bought a vehicle from you. Nothing was explained when they're sitting there signing their life away for this vehicle, or not signing away their life for a vehicle, and you're not explaining what is expected of them. You're not explaining that you're going to adhere to a first payment default. So by the time the collections company is calling them at 1 day past due, or your collections department is calling them at 1 day past due, they're already in hot water. So if it wasn't explained and you just assume, then that's not clear communication to your customer of what is expected. You gotta educate them as they go along with this process. Sometimes they haven't even been through a car buying process. You have to
Yeah,
remember that.
that makes total sense.
So speaking of that, let's talk about the finance part. Let's move on to finance. We'll give the sales team a break right now. But finance often gets viewed as paperwork. But finance actually creates that clarity that I was just explaining to you. The customer should leave knowing exactly how much they owe on that vehicle, when it's due, how they need to pay that amount, the frequency, even down to explaining to them what a biweekly payment means, because to them, they see biweekly, okay, it's every other week, that's twice a month. 2 times a year, that customer is going to be due a third payment. You would not believe how many calls we get from customers. I already paid you twice this month. Da, 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 da. I'm on a biweekly. I pay every other week. Yes, just like your job, you get paid biweekly. You get a third paycheck 2 times a year. So explaining that to them, if they're on a semi-monthly, then yes, you will always pay 2 times a month.
Yeah.
Um, and then what happens if they're late? Do they have any late fees? What day does those late fees? How much is that late fee going to be? Is it going to accumulate over time? Must it be paid with their payment when they pay it? They need to know these things. And then if those conversations don't happen, then your collections department has to handle it later on. And I'm going to tell you from a collection standpoint, they're not going to be happy because the first default thing that they're going to say is, I wasn't told that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I'll mention that some of the people on the webinar with us right now may be large enough where they have like a finance department, um, to where they use outside financing sources and then some in-house, uh, as if that's an option. And I'll kind of explain the way it was when I was selling cars back in the 90s. I worked for a large dealer group, and we had the option of putting customers through a bunch of banks and all that kind of stuff. And if the customer didn't qualify for one of those, we would start explaining the process then, actually, before we even started looking at cars. This may be helpful to some of our uh, participants today. So in that case, we would explain to customers, so we're not able to get you approved on traditional financing. We have an option for you called XYZ. And you don't have to say you're the finance company, but you would say, in that case, it's a little less options on movement on payment dates and all this kind of stuff. And it's if you can get into that program, maybe on a little bit of a less vehicle, and then we kind of step you up the ladder from there. Um, and the way that we would explain it to customers, it was usually started creating trust at that point. And then so the next piece would do if they said, okay, let's go look at some cars. We would do that. We would look at a car, land on a vehicle, and then me as the salesperson back then would say, okay, just in general, your payments are going to be X. They're going to fall on this date, which we discussed with the customers. And we would do a really good general quick overview. And then when they went to the finance department, they would go get the details of the contract. And so between us, the salespeople, and the finance department, the customer usually got a real solid explanation of what they're getting involved in, and that makes all the difference.
Yes, and letting them know, hey, if I do run into a tough time, can I make a deferred payment? Do you even do deferred payments? All of this stuff is so important to be discussed every step of the way. That customer should know what is going to happen the moment that they leave that door. It should have been hounded into them while they've been sitting at your dealership.
And the collection staff needs to know the same process and what was said to the customer and follow it on through the
And
ladder.
that's that consistency
Yeah.
along the whole way. That consistency needs to happen. You can't have a salesperson saying, "Oh yeah, I accept partial payments," and then your collections department being like, "No, we don't accept partial payments," because that was misleading, you know, during the process. I say in business, it's either going to be a fit or it's not. But if it's not, your next opportunity is just around the corner. You
Yeah.
don't have to snag it all. And, paperwork isn't enough. So many dealerships believe collection starts around 30 days past due. Very high. If my queen of collection radar is ding, ding, dinging right now with hearing 30 days. But that is the average of what these dealerships are willing to go. I'd argue to say that it starts the first 30 days after delivery, meaning right around the time that their first payment is due. This is where habits are formed. The welcome call is made, they're answering questions, making the first payment is easy, following up before the problem grows. Every positive interaction increases that likelihood of long-term success on this account. Collections loves customers who have already built those good habits. By the time that your collections department has called them, they have had they have heard this speech about three other times, 30 days ago, 15 days ago, whenever you want to do your welcome call with your customer. I recommend doing it closer to when they're due, because then the likelihood of you collecting that first payment, some people say, hey, yeah, I'll go ahead and make that first payment. Let me get that going. Or, yeah, I want to set up auto pay. Let's go ahead before it's even due. That way I don't have to think about it. I recommend doing your welcome calls closer to that time that their first payment's due, and they should already know what the collections process, procedure, where to go, what to do looks like for them. Anything
Yep.
you want to add, Mr. Bachelor?
No, I think that says it all. That first 30 days leading up to the first payment is huge. The It's important for if someone from your collections team uh talks to the customer when it's time for the first payment and there's a vehicle issue. The alternator went out. And we are not we, but if we're doing it, we would let the dealer know. But if you're doing it in-house, the collections, you would let either the salesperson or sales manager know, hey, this customer's first payment's coming due and the alternator's out. It's real important that the dealer jumps on that, gets involved with the customer early to get that fixed, because that, like you said earlier, builds trust going forward. And if, in most cases, if the car ain't running, especially after the first 30 days, then they ain't paying. That's what I see. But
Yep, you
so,
have already broken that trust by, in their eyes, giving them a card that doesn't work, and then they're less likely to communicate with you about that until the problem's already severe because they're like, what am I gonna do? Type situation. That again starts at sales. You let them know, hey, if this starts happening, if maintenance issues happen, if a service needs to happen, this is what we recommend, or bring it to our service department. Again, you're outlining it the entire process. So let's talk about one of the most overlooked departments when it comes to collections, and that's Customer service. Most dealerships think customer service is just answering the phones. I think customer service builds those relationships with the customers. Think about your own life. When you've had a problem with a company you trust, what do? You call them.
Repeat. Oh yeah.
Um,
You buy from them again or yeah.
Right. You call them when you have a problem with somebody you trust. If it's here in San Antonio and
Yeah.
Frost Bank, is big here in San Antonio, you bank there. If you have a problem with them, you're gonna call them because you're like, oh, I trust you. Like, what's going on? Is this just a misunderstanding? How are we gonna get this fixed? Your mindset is different going into it. Um, when you don't trust a company, you ignore them. Um, you get sent to voicemail, you get blocked. Guess what? Block button, nothing you can do about it. That call's not going to get to that customer. They've blocked you. They don't care. They've went about their life. They're like, dealership who? What? No, because you didn't build that trust. And then issues start happening and you didn't follow through and then nobody contacted them and nobody told them this and it just spirals. um, Customers behave the exact same way. Every positive interaction makes future collection conversations easier, and every negative interaction makes them harder.
Yep.
So you got to build the trust or they're going to avoid you and they're going to find ways around whatever you're telling them. So just make sure that, again, you're building the trust from the moment they walk into your dealership to the moment they leave to the moment that you're calling them about their vehicle for the longevity of their loan with you and then some. So notice where collections appears on this timeline. It's the last communication, not the first. And healthy portfolios are built through proactive communication. Those friendly reminders, those quick responses, insurance follow-ups, payment confirmations, thank them for their payment. By the time collection calls happen, the customer should already know. They should already know you. They should already be expecting you. They know what to expect. And that proactive communication today prevents that collections problem tomorrow, like I said. Um, if you're wanting to get money back on your vehicle, to buy more vehicles, to get more sold, to get that money coming back in, if all you're doing is taking that money and buying, investing your time, your patience, your devotion to that process, and not the process that is actually bringing that money back in, then somewhere along the way, those wires were crossed. And I would recommend that you take a look at kind of what you're thinking. And going into this insurance section, there are a lot of dealers that I know that do not take the insurance seriously. And that to me is like, why would you not want to protect your collateral? Why would you not want the money back on that, opposed to just seeing as like a write-off or, oh, well, type of situation? You would not believe how many dealers do not take this section seriously. So I just wanted to kind of highlight this part right here. Um, it's not simply a compliance requirement, it's risk management. Every uninsured vehicle increases potential loss, and insurance protects the customer, it protects the collateral, it protects your portfolio, and ultimately it protects your cash flow. So it's a revolving cycle. And I just wanted to really highlight this insurance section because I have run across a lot of dealers lately that just don't care about their insurance or whether their customers are holding that.
Yeah, there's so many good options too, as far as if you don't want to stay on top of your customers about getting insurance. There's CPI, which we cover in other webinars, but there's a lot of options. You can contact us if you have other questions, and we'll direct you to some great options.
And the CPI options are great for those dealers who just want to make sure that they're really insured. But again, this is a responsibility that your customers should be having, and the dedication to be able to keep and maintain insurance when it should be required by you, the dealer. Um, it's kind of like a respect thing, right? You know that they're going to carry this insurance if they are willing, able to get insurance, provide that to you. Their likelihood to make their payments for their vehicle that they're insuring and being compliant increases. So you know you have a good customer when they're willing and able to do that. And then back into compliance. And it's something that gets viewed as the department that tells everybody no. I prefer to think of compliance differently. Compliance creates consistency, compliance creates that trust. Um, it creates that communication. The communication improves the collections, and everything is connected and interwoven. Um, and so it's just you got to make sure that you are looking at the bigger picture of all of this,
The long term, yeah.
the long term. Um, so who owns collections? I want to challenge that question really quick for the dealers that are watching this. Who owns collections?
Some dealers are going like this.
Yes, it's going to be like them. No, not me, not me. Anybody but me.
Yeah.
Um, so everybody just turn the finger back on
Yeah.
yourselves. Everybody's going to point at themselves. It doesn't matter what department you're in. Everybody. Everybody owns collections. So that's my little slide right here. If like every department owns collections,
Yay.
every action, every conversation, every decision either makes collections easier or it makes it harder.
Look at all those departments you have down there.
Yep. So we've talked about finance, we've talked about customer service, we've
Whew.
talked about insurance, compliance. So again, everyone owns the collections from start to finish. You've got sales, finance, customer service, insurance, compliance, accounting, technology, marketing, training, repos, vendors, collections, all of it.
Even the lot manager out moving cars
Even
around,
the
all of
lot
that.
manager, even your janitorial staff,
You name it.
everybody owns collections. Um, After everything that we've discussed today, I hope that your answer has changed regarding collections and who takes ownership of that. Because every department either makes collections easier or harder. And let's see what that actually looks like. So this is how I see departments, or this is how I see the dealership, not departments. One system, every spoke on the wheel supports the center. Remove one, and the entire operation becomes weaker. Um, so if you take a look, again, it's the same ones that I just read out. So what happens when the wheels work together, right? So you can't think about it as a flat tire, right? You get a nail in the flat tire, or you get a nail in your tire. It can, it's feeling pretty good. It could probably, stand the test of time a little bit. You get another nail, right? In a different spot. Those nails eventually come out. You're going to end up with a flat tire. You've got to have all of these pieces uh, to make the dealership and the cash flow go like how you want it. So, high performing dealerships. One of the biggest myths in our industry is that successful dealerships simply hire better collectors. In reality, they usually have better systems, better communication, better expectations, better training, which means collections spends less time fixing those preventable problems. And when I say better systems, I'm not necessarily talking about a DMS. I'm talking about your system that you're going to adhere to from start to finish, your collection process that you're going to have outlined from start to finish, that your sales department, that your underwriting, that your general managers, that your collection staff has all agreed to give this customer the most amount of success. Have anything you want to add, Mr. Bachelor?
No, I'm just getting thirsty thinking about all these processes and departments but everybody's working together on the collections.
Right. And so where do you start? Where do you start? Before changing softwares, before hiring other collectors, before changing policies, procedures, ask yourself these 5 questions. They often reveal where the real opportunity lies. Okay, so does every employee understand how they impact collections? If you are pointing at these different directions yourself, then I'm going to assume that and I said not to make assumptions, um, but I'm going to assume that your staff doesn't know either, that they're going to be pointing these different directions too.
I'll give
Um,
you a good example of the lot manager person, even using that person as example. I saw one time when a customer had bought a car a week or so before, and I saw this from inside the building. And then I went out and asked the lot person about what that exchange was about. And the customer pulled in and opened up their back door and started talking to the lot manager guy and was pointing to some stuff. And it was like, I was like, I was like, what the heck's going on there? So, and then I see the customer going, oh, doing this. Okay, cool. Get back in the car and drive off. So when I asked the guy what happened there, he said, oh, they just pulled up and she was saying the back window was not rolling down from the back. And she was like, golly, I'm trying to get some air, or my passenger was trying to get some air or something. Well, we were like, well, the child safety lock up here is set to where the people in the back can't roll. So he goes,
yep,
oh,
gotta hit
just switch
the
this
the
switch.
window privilege button.
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
yep,
So that was a perfect example of the customer's like, oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And they pulled out and it took 5 minutes.
yep. And then ask yourself, do the departments communicate? Are the expectations clear? Do customers know what to expect? And are we being proactive or reactive when it comes to the customers? Um, and if you only remember one thing from today, I hope it's this, because this idea changes the way that we think about operations. Great collections don't happen because collectors work harder. Great collections happens because the entire dealership has worked together to make it all happen. Okay. Remember, guys, you're one team. And so every part of that dealership, everybody should know the different parts and what goes into everybody's work in the dealership. It's not being nosy. It's for purposes of understanding what each department does and how they do their process. Come up with team meetings. How are you going to start with the customer? How are you going to then follow up? How are the come up with a plan, right? You're all on one team. Do you think that football players go out on the field with no plays, or we're getting into football season, so I'm getting excited. Um, do you think that they go out on the field with no plays? No, they have a playbook and they've practiced those plays and they've perfected those plays to hopefully combat the other team and go score. So just remember, you're all on one team. And so if you guys have any questions, the chat is open. I believe the question and answer box is also open. Um, and so you can share in there. And then on this next slide is my information here at Alamo Financial. You can find our webinars, our monthly webinars on our YouTube channel. We also do have a website, phone number, and then my email, of course. I want to see if any, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see about questions.
We ran a little bit over today. Normally these run about 30 minutes and we're over a little bit. So a lot of good
Yeah,
stuff in there.
I usually schedule them for an hour for a buffer period. Sometimes we get talking about a hot topic and we just can't stop. So I put them as an hour and then hopes. My goal is always about 45 minutes.
Nice.
Put us on while you're driving to and from the office, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so I've got a couple of questions here. How many collectors do you feel that you need to have per account?
So I can answer that if you like, or
Yep, go for it.
so the way that we look at it here is um, around 500 accounts assigned to each collector. And so what that means is typically in the area of auto finance we're in, which is the buy here, pay here, deep subprime field, the portfolio will run 30%-ish of delinquent accounts. So that averages to about 150 accounts per collector to work per day. So that can vary. I've seen that as high as like 750 or 1,000. It depends on what you have each CSR or collector doing. But a good average in the industry is about 500 accounts per collector. I
Yep.
think that answers the question. I guess another answer might be how many, if the question was how many CSRs do you have handling an account, that could be up to three, um, meaning if it gets escalated to repossession, then it's going to go to a lead or a head CSR or a collection manager. So there's things like that involved. But typically here, we try to have the CSR, the collector, handle it as far as they can before handing it off. And that's about 150 accounts per day for them to work.
Okay. Yeah, I think they were more so asking like how many accounts per, like how many collectors you need per an account, like accounts, meaning
Yeah,
like
it
the
was,
500, what you were answering. So
yeah,
perfect.
okay.
Um, they asked, at what point do you feel repossession needs to be discussed during the sales process?
So that's another really good question that we get a lot. And I may have you give your opinion or your um, answer. My answer is you need to have a very dedicated process that sets that because you can't just say, well, we repo cars at 10 days. Well, you know, what if a customer made a promise to pay and then so there's all these things that fall in the cracks. We have a specific process that we follow that we would be happy to forward somebody as an example of when a vehicle actually comes up for repossession. So, um, you think that kind of answered that question, Rhonda, or
Yeah.
you may have a better way to answer it?
Yeah. So I would say that you're discussing what that's going to look like for the customer on the collection side. So again, going like referring back to that PowerPoint, you need to discuss the bad things that can happen. You don't want it to be a surprise. Yes, repossessions are out there. Most people think that they can't be repossessed or talked to or anything for 30 days. Okay, so again, to assume that somebody has been through a process like this, to assume that they know that they're going to be repossessed, again, is very naive to go about that. I would say that you're discussing the repossession. Typically, you can use words like typically, or generally. They don't have to be firm in the aspect of like typically we repossess at 10 days past due. We will repossess at 1 day past due for a first payment default. Like
There you
you can outline that in your contracts, even if it's a verbal, even if it's a piece of paper that has that typed up and you're having them initial. At least you're going through the process and letting them know exactly when that is going to happen. It doesn't need to be a surprise. You're going to get the car either way. There are opportunities to hide or whatever. They're going to do it. They're going to do it regardless. So why not do your due diligence and prep them for the best success? We don't want to look at this as a glass half full situation already. We want to go into it with a glass half full and fill that cup up for that customer. Don't look at it. If you're already having your doubts or your questions, then you did a bad job in the underwriting process or figuring out if this customer is approved for one of your vehicles.
Yes, yes. And you made me think of something else. Make sure to read your contract to see what your contract says. Most contracts say the account is in default, um, the first day they're past due. That's most contracts, but definitely read your contract and either tell your customer what your contract says or change your contract to read what you're telling your customers.
Yep. Yep. And then that was the last question. So I think we are good to go. Sorry for keeping you guys a little bit over, but those were some good questions and hopefully some really good answers for you guys to think about. As always, we will see you next time. I hope that everybody has a great August. I was about to say October, trying to advance myself a little bit. Have a great August,
Yep.
and that back to school season goes well for everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Enjoyed it.
guys.
Bye.